them as well. What a move from the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through that left-hander, sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a new series here on RaceSpotTV, in conjunction, of course, with Motorsport UK. It's the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge here from Spa-Francorchamps for round number 1. My name is Conry Maddock, and I'm joined by Dara Thacker for the commentary of this particular broadcast, and obviously the season going forwards as well. We're just about getting ourselves set here. Drivers already out there on circuit looking to get their qualifying laps done. But Dara, it's a new season. There's the calendar. We start here at Spa, but we do head, of course, to Daytona, Road America, Suzuka, and Silverstone to finish off this 5-round season.
Yeah, we're hitting all the classics, aren't we? We're not really leaving any stone unturned. Spa to start us off, Daytona, as you said, and going down towards Silverstone at the end of the season with that extended 300-kilometer race. It's a very short, sharp season, and the drivers are going to have to be on it right from the word go here, because you cannot find yourself losing out too much ground early on in just week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. As is normally the case here in these Motorsport UK sort of community events where, yeah, these seasons aren't long whatsoever. So you really have to be on the ball from the get-go. And, well, it all starts here in qualifying at Spa-Francorchamps. It's really a track that requires no introduction, Dara. One of the most famous circuits in the world, and it's very close to many people's hearts for a good reason. And the racing is just so good here consistently.
It's a circuit that we know and love. I don't think we've seen many cars not race around Spa-Francorchamps, and we've definitely seen these prototypes go racing here, and it means that some of these drivers may have that experience behind them, may have a little bit of ability in the back pocket that they can turn to, and know that they have the pace around this circuit, because it is one where you're going to have to get that rhythm in. It's not a circuit where, you know, you can really start missing a few apexes, particularly in that middle sector, and expect the lap time to come back to you. You're going to have to be on it all the way through the race, and that rhythm is going to be so crucial, particularly in the qualifying session where you've only got 3 laps to set a lap time.
Absolutely. We're riding aboard with Rocco Valentino at the moment. He heads his way through that fantastic Eau Rouge Radillon section. You always clench up just a little bit in terms of the tension on the way through there, you know, because it is such a dangerous portion of the circuit. If you get it wrong, you get it catastrophically wrong. But then you can relax a little bit, then heading onto the brakes in towards Lecombe. Make sure you link up those apexes perfectly. Try and climb up over the curb if the car allows you to do so through Malmedy. Again, taking as much exit curb as you can get away with. Downhill braking then in towards Bruxelles. Just hold that white line on the inside, shortest distance around the corner, of course, and then get yourself positioned in towards Jackie Ick's corner, of course, formerly No Name Corner. Dara, you do have to be careful, though, as we head down in towards Ravage, about the off tracks here. It can be a very quick way to ruin a lap.
You're really pushing the boundaries here at Spa, aren't you? Very many corners where you're going that little bit wider onto the curb just to try and eke out every single thousandth. So drivers going to have to be careful, not just in this qualifying session, but in the race as well. I mean, we've got 20 incident points is where you're going to hit before you get a drive-through penalty, and 10 more after that every time to hit another drive-through. So going to be difficult for these guys to keep it on track. They've got to keep it nice and balanced. But looking at Rocco Valentino through here, looking good through the middle sector and very much keeping it on the racetrack.
Yeah, it looks pretty clean, looks very, very stable so far from the 999. So this is looking like a good lap time. Of course, you're wanting to set a banker lap here in the early parts of qualifying. They'll get themselves 3 laps to be able to get their position on the starting grid for this particular 1-hour race. And a 1-hour race in prototypes means there is going to be a fuel stop. So that's going to be an interesting thing to think about heading into the events. Rocco Valentino across the line, provisional pole position in LMDh AM. So that gives us a little bit of a chance, Dara, to have a little bit of a chat about the classes here today. We've got the LMDh cars, or the GTP cars, which are going to be your fastest class here today, and you've also got the LMP3 with the Ligier down there as well. As well as having these 2 separate, of course, categories of cars, we have subcategories as well, because we have pro and am competitors in both classes.
Yes, we've really effectively got 4 races ongoing this evening where all of the drivers are going to have their own little battles to be fought. And it's good to see that we've got so many drivers involved and in so many different cars. Of course, with the LMP3s, there's pretty much just the Ligier, as you mentioned, Bird. It is open setups. There is a little bit of room to maybe change the car in your favour. But in the LMDHs, there is going to be a couple of choice decisions made by these drivers into which car to go into. And that'll absolutely be done on preference, you'd think. But there are some cars that are definitely going to have an advantage here at Spa, and then following on onto some of the other racetracks in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like the drivers haven't settled on an exact LMDh to go with. We got a good couple of Porsches out there, a couple of Cadillacs as well. We do have one BMW. That's Jack Mace in the, well, that have set times at the moment. We do have other representatives further down the field that have not set themselves times just yet. But there's Gareth Higgins, who is going to be heading his way through towards the back end of a lap here. Currently provisional pole position in the LMP3 Pro class, and in fact he is currently the highest rated driver in terms of iRating that's going to be competing here today. He's at the lofty heights of almost 7,400 iRating, which is a number that we can only dream of.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I'm ever going to get anywhere near that, so full credit to him. And there's a reason that you and I, Connery, are up here in the commentary booth. They're not down on the racetrack throwing these cars around, but these guys absolutely deserve to be here and looking to get their season off to the best start, particularly in this qualifying session where they're going to have to get these lap times in soon. There's a few drivers you can see on the timing tower there yet to set any lap times at all, and they're going to have to be quick in doing so because we are really running out of time. Now, 3 minutes on the clock, and with a 2-minute lap, you're going to have to be starting or crossing the line pretty soon if you want your lap time to count. But looking at some of the gaps as well, they aren't big, are they? Rocco Valentino is only 300ths ahead of Philip Cannell in the LMDh AM category, and all 4 are less than 0.3 of a second between the first 2.
Yeah, so a tight run thing in that particular class. It's somewhat replicated further down in LMP3s, just 1/10 of a second in the AM category between Adrian Carter and Sikorsky there, as we're riding on board with Ant Castles in the LMP3 Pro class. Of course, this will be his last attempt at a fast lap time here. Deciding to stay off of the white line on the right-hand side there just a little bit. Not sure whether that's driver preference or there was a little bit, well, didn't quite hug it as much as he would have wanted to. However, still continuing on, 0.2 of a second to find if he's going to try to steal pole position away from that number 36 of Gareth Higgins. It seems like a big ask, especially given the iRating difference between the 2.
It is a very long circuit, isn't it? So there's definitely chance here for Ant Castles with lots of elements of this circuit, lots of places where you can gain and lose time to maybe pick up a couple of hundredths, and it can all add up towards the end of the lap. Maybe a little bit wide, definitely quite wide at the end of the second sector, coming into Paul Frere past the house, which is no longer there, of course. But coming up towards Blanchemont and the bus stop, this doesn't look like it's the lap that's going to work out for Ant Castles.
Well, we'll just have to run it through. 1:30 left on the clock, and as they head their way into Blanchemont, no need to lift at all in these prototype cars. They have more than enough downforce to be able to deal with that. Hitting the brakes now in towards the bus stop at the very end of the lap. Expect some hopeful moves down the inside as Castles half spins it. That's the qualifying lap over, and well, his qualifying session over as he dives down on towards the pit lane.
Yeah, P2 at best for him in the 87 car. We'll see if he can stay there, but there's going to be others looking to go forward, and there it is. Andrew Medell has just leapfrogged him in the number 11 to go into P2. Meanwhile, Ethan Barford in the LMP3 AM category, currently sitting in P4, but not too far off the leading time, and with the top two split by just a half of a tenth of a second, he can try and slot himself up near the front through the final couple of corners. He's 2/10 off at the moment, but can he find any time on this, his final timed run? Ethan Barford up to the line. Looks like he's going to stay where he is. No, he's not. A little bit of a delay in the timing tab, but he jumps up to provisional pole.
Yeah, absolutely. Ethan Barford doing very, very well indeed. A lot of drivers coming, have already finished their laps at this point. I would say half the field have already been able to make their way to the line to complete their final laps, and we don't have a lot of time left on the clock whatsoever either, as Daniel Thomas at the very last moment goes to second place on the grid in LMDh Pro. We're currently having a look at Will Foyle here as he heads his way out to the final corner. Let's see what he's able to do in terms of a last attempt. Won't be able to get to the line, however, though. But look at that, 40 thousandths of a second separating P1 and 2 in LMDh Pro. We have a race on in that category and a couple of the others as well. But we get the server transitioning into racing mode. We get to have a look at our starting grid for our first round of the season here in the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge. In LMDh Pro, it's Ben Ford taking a pole position with Daniel Thomas with a last gasp attempt to try and get onto the front row of the starting grid. Will Foyle in P3 with Adam Locke in P4, Jordan Studwick and Salvatore Giorantino in 6th place. Christian Saruta in 7th with Sarah Dove starting in 8th. Then we've got Matthew Luke and Cody Cosford rounding out the 10 cars in the LMDh Pro. In the LMDh AM, it's Rocco Valentino taking pole position there with Philip Cannell in P2. Then you got Patrick Den and Luca Monroe rounding out the second row of the starting grid. Daniel Rice and Jamie Gibson will bring things down to P6 there. Further back, you've got Robin Katzelberger, then you've got Nick Dealey, Charles Wimbley, Louis Hesketh, Jack Mace, and Zed Murray rounding out the top 12 cars there. And then Cody Richards starting in P13, didn't quite get a qualifying time set. Then you have a look at LMP3 Pro. It's Gareth Higgins with a great lap time to get the first pole position of the season in LMP3s. Then you've got Andrew Mardle in P2. And Castle's in P3 with Patrick Wright in P4. And then P5 goes to James King. Then for your final category here today, it's going to be the LMP3 AMs. Ethan Barford, pole position there with Franciszek Sikorski in P2. Aidan Carter in P3 with Callum Newton in P4. Baz Meckham in P5 with Mark Baker starting in P6. Cav Blood starts 7th with Balal Usman in P8. Then you got Mansfield, Coffin, Curtis and Aaron Wen rounding out the top 12 there. And at the very back of the grid, we have Linda Noble, Stuart Rice, and Liam Kelso. So that is the top to bottom in terms of the starting grid here today. You can see the drivers getting themselves all stacked up behind the pace car here. We'll be getting ourselves a rolling start done shortly. Here are the prizes for your particular competitors over the course of this season. The winner in class gets a set of a custom Abruzzi Gloves Boots and a shirt. We'll cover the others a little bit later on as we're about to get started here. Pace car down on towards the safety of pit lane. Field now under the control of the front of the LMDh Pro class. It's a new season here on RaceSpotTV, a new season for Motorsport UK as well, as we get these prototypes rolling their way down in towards last source. The green flag, of course, on this endurance layout coming out on the exit of last source. But it's going to be tricky. We're going to be side by side, 2 by 2, down into Eau Rouge and Radion for the first time. Drivers eagerly awaiting that green flag to signal the start of the new season. Bunching up down the hill across those grid spots. We're racing here for round number 1 at Spa-Francorchamps. It's a great start from Ben Ford from pole position, but it is 2 by 2 behind in towards Eau Rouge and Radion for the first time. Make sure you got to get yourself through here cleanly without any contact. It seems like the front of the LMDHs has done that in quite comfortable fashion as they now storm their way down down towards Lecombe, as there's a little bit of weaving, a little bit of defending already, as we have a look at the LMP3s as well. The front of the LMP3s has gotten their start. Gareth Higgins trying to defend the race lead from a bit of a marauding pack behind as well. Andrew Mardle and Anthony Castles looking aggressive on the way down into Lords Lecombe for the first time. Higgins having to defend here from Mardle around the outside in the LMP3, well, front of the pack in the LMP3s. Higgins is able to hold on, but here comes Castles now looking for that P2.
Yeah, ducking and diving all the way down towards the end of the Kemmel Straight, but they've all made their way through, it seems. That still moves through Bruxelles, inside line being controlled there, and actually the car on the outside getting pushed a little bit further wide than they would want to be, and maybe at risk of losing yet another position. But at the front of the field, the start was exactly what was needed from Ben Ford, and he got away, leaving everybody in his wake, and it meant that he could just have a clean run into Lecombe, which couldn't be said for quite a few of the drivers, I could say, behind, who were 2 wide, 3 wide even, making their way through those opening couple of corners. But as we get towards the end of the opening lap, it seems that most of the drivers have got their way through cleanly, which is exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, we're seeing a little look to the inside there. That was Callum Newton on the back of the 42 ahead of Aidan Carter. That was the ballot in the LMP3 AM category. As you can see in the small box down in the bottom right-hand side, that's the front of the LMDh. So Ben Ford is able to come out of the, well, I mean, it's not the final corner on the, well, we'll have a debate, but down in towards La Source. And it looks like William Foyle, again, sort of trying to keep him honest here, but the last thing that these guys in P2 and P3 want to have is Ben Ford breaking their draft and able to pull away and manage his own race from the very front. You want to be hanging with him. You want to be giving him something to think about. Otherwise, this could really spiral very quickly as we have someone spun out of the bus stop there. It looks like that's Baz Meckham who's dropping down the order, the 511. There he is. Bright orange wheels, Welsh flag on the rear wing. I do appreciate that, having grown up there, but a bit of an unceremonious half spin, but he's able to get himself back going.
Yeah, difficult start for him on the opening lap as well. Just to get himself out of the bus stop chicane, facing the wrong way is not what you want to be looking at. But it is a long race. We've got 57 more minutes. It's an hour's worth of racing that we get to feast our eyes upon. And we're just going to see a little bit more, aren't we? As we rise over the crest hill onto the Kemmel Straight. Side by side, Mark Baker in the 53 car looking to make moves here if he can on the way into Lecombe. Outside line, it'll be for him. Can he control it all the way around? The outside's going to have to tiptoe dance there. I think he's just about going to do it. And indeed he is. Going maybe a little bit wide, but making sure that his car stays on the racetrack, taking the position, and is up into P5 and behind. Oh no, it's looking like it's a bit of a melee in behind us. They're 2-3 wide coming to Bruxelles. This could be dangerous, but they're all keeping it nice and well-mannered. The 58 car of Patrick Rathert not having the best of sectors because he's lost 2 positions now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things. Oh, is into the wall. Car in behind, that is going to be Craig Curtis. So Curtis having a bit of an issue coming through Jackie X corner, and well, being able to get himself back going, but we have to wonder about any damage on that car. We do have to remind everyone that these guys, oh, big incident, big incident in front of this grouping of cars. That's Michael Mansfield having an awful accident on the run up towards Piff Path there. He'll take the tow back towards pit lane. Well, I guess the topic I was going on to is even more relevant now, because these drivers do get themselves one fast repair to use, but after a catastrophic accident like that, you can't help but take the tow. You just can't continue.
Yeah, and these guys only get 1 fast repair per race, so that's going to be tough for them, especially if they have early problems, because they're going to not be able to fix the car in any kind of normal or short time frame in a racing situation later on in the race. Looking at the front, though, Ben Ford having to defend from William Foyle, because the number 44 all over the back of Ben Ford at the moment, and the number 9 hasn't been allowed to get away. Daniel Thomas is following along as well, and we are starting to see these 3 maybe pull away from the rest in the class. There's a big gap, definitely, between 4th and 5th. That's between Jordan Strudwick and Azam Locke, but at the moment it looks like the top 3 are where the race is at this stage. Granted, only 5 minutes in.
Yeah, Strudwick still trying to bridge the gap here for the moment. Here's a little bit of a look as to one of the incidents that we had a bit earlier on. That's Louis Hesketh having a little bit of contact and spun in front of traffic. Isbel Usman as well, optimistic down the inside. Again, has a bit of a spin, has to wait for the pack to come through, and that's one of the most Ooh, and a bit of an issue with Cody Cosford there. I guess that one's a little bit more understandable due to having a little bit of connection problems there that was contributing that. Matthew Luke having a self-spin coming through pit path. Jack Mace having a self-spin and a big accident. That's what happened coming out of Pouon there to Jack Mace. Just the car got unsettled on exit and just speared him into the concrete on the inside.
Yeah, that would absolutely be a trip to the medical centre if this was real-life racing. That was a big old hit, wasn't it, into the barrier, but luckily he will be fine, but sadly his chances in the race will not be, and he is almost certainly out of the running, at the very least out of any kind of contention. But we are still seeing these really close moments. This happened to Baz Meacham. He got spun around there, a little bit of a love tap in the rear, and not really much that the 511 could do, but I was just saying how it's good to see that we've still got these battles on track. Of course, so many cars all over, dotted around this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. They could space themselves out a little bit, but we're seeing some nice tight battling as we are for the front of the field.
Yeah, here comes the run from William Foyle, looking to try and gain the ground all the way down the left-hand side, using the deployment to his advantage there. And it might have been helped by a bit of a poor run from Ford through Eau Rouge and Raidillon as well. But new race leader in LMDh Pro, that's William Foyle in that Porsche, going to the head of that particular category. Ben Ford, of course, sliding in behind. He's in the Cadillac, so he's the Cadillac meat in a Porsche sandwich at the moment. But it'll give us a good idea to see exactly what the difference is in performance between these two cars at this particular circuit.
It's interesting because, generally speaking, it's about a 50-50 split between drivers that have chosen the Porsche and have chosen the Cadillac. I can see that Jordan Strudwick is in the Acura, but I think he's the only driver still running that's in there. So it's pretty clear to see that everyone leaving the Acura and the BMW, except for one driver in each, away, and everybody taking either the Cadillac or the Porsche. And it's clear to see that there's not too much difference because they're running pretty closely together. No one really gaining much of an advantage in these early stages. But Ben Ford being in that Cadillac with two Porsches around him may suggest that the Porsches may have a slight advantage early on here.
Perhaps, as we see a battle going on. This is Joe Coffin and Cav Budd who are battling for, this is 29th overall, and of course they're in the same category in terms of their AM and Pro as well, so 5th and 6th in LMP3 AM here, looking very, very close out there on circuit. Remember, this is still a very early stages of this race. It's an hour-long race, and we've barely got the first 10 minutes done, so a lot of things to come here, including those scheduled stops for to get the fuel till the end of the race. But these early battles still do matter somewhat, because that gives you that early track position to be able to make that strategy call a little bit later on in the race when they'll have to come down in.
Yeah, in a 1 hour long race, you're kind of spending the first 20 minutes trying to position yourself in the best possible place, especially with the pit stop in mind, just to kind of settle yourself into that rhythm in a spot that you can really work forward from. Second 20 minutes is just, like I said, getting that rhythm and getting the times down and trying to just increase that pace, getting into towards the final 20 minutes, where you're going to be trying to make those moves to get up the field if you can. So an hour long race, it can be a little bit of a challenge, particularly if drivers are used to shorter races, but people who are experienced at this kind of race length, and particularly in prototype racing, may have an advantage in just having that racecraft knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a 6 or 12 hour long endurance race. This is a sprint race, all things considered. So you want to be going 110% from the get-go. But we'll see how that works out over the next 50 minutes. We're looking at a battle for 7th in LMP3 AM here at the moment. Sophie Aronwan was able to get past Liam Kelso on that last lap, but Sophie's going to push wide here, which is not exactly ideal. Kelso able to dip back in underneath and make this a competition on the way down in towards Eau Rouge, but no, actually Aronwan completely out of the throttle. I wonder if she got a slowdown penalty by going that wide out of La Source.
Yeah, I reckon that's probably what's happened there. You could definitely see the wide moment, and you would not be surprised if the slowdown was what was given out to Sophie there. So unfortunate, but not losing too much time in the grand scheme of things, and lucky to really make sure that the car was kept firmly out of the barriers, because that would have been a much worse circumstance if that had occurred, particularly there when it was impossible to get yourself to the pit lane in a decent time. But you know, these are the early stages of the race, and early stages of the season. The drivers are feeling out, you know, the cars, the competition. They're just trying to make sure that they negotiate their way through this quite nicely. And for these guys at the front of the field in the LMDh, they are just kind of looking to track each other, looking to see where they can gain or lose pace on each other and try and gain later on accordingly. But they are really tracking each other early on here. As you can see, all of the top 5 maybe bunching up that little bit more again.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a runaway race leader here at the moment in any of your LMDh classes, at least. It's a little bit of a different case in the LMP3s, where we have an almost 5-second gap for the LMP3 Pro between Mardel and Castles here at the moment. But at least in LMDhs, the front of the field is looking very, very competitive here at the moment. And with Ben Ford, of course, he led the early parts of the race. He got himself pole position, but I would say still in a comfortable spot. You're in that leading pack, you're in that leading trio, and you're not off the pace whatsoever. You're not allowing Foyle to get himself away here. Foyle, of course, has had an amazing start, actually. He started in P3, now is currently leading the race, but there's still a lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns hanging over the front of this LMDh class, because we just don't have the form to go by. It's the first race of the season, and it's the first season that we've had here in the Motorsports UK Abruzzi Prototype Challenge, so we don't know a lot, and the drivers also don't know a lot about each other, so we're really into the unknown here.
Yeah, and I know that a couple of drivers have said that this is one of their first iRacing competitive races, so a lot of unknowns for a lot of those guys. They're going to be feeling their way through the early stages. Will be able to kind of settle themselves more as we work towards the end of the season, particularly when we get to Silverstone at the end. But that is a longer race, so I think those drivers will be hoping to be settled in, will be hoping to get more of a feel for the cars and the competition when we get to that kind of stage of the season. But for all of the guys now, this first race is not just for getting the points on the board, but also just for making sure that they are in a good spot in the championship, but also in confidence levels going into the second part of this season. And we're seeing Connery some early pit stops. Yeah,
so Philip Carnell down on towards the pit lane. And remember, we're using the endurance pits here at Spa. Careful with the turn in the middle of pit lane. Which means that your pit lane time here is absolutely monstrous. It takes about 15 years to try and get from the start of pit lane right until the very end. But Carnell is the only driver down and in at this point. We've had other drivers come down in, but that's mostly for fast repairs because of problems and incidents and some such. But I'm not seeing any damage to Carnell's car, so maybe he has decided he wants to come down in ultra early. And if he can make the fuel numbers work, which he probably could, well, he is going to be able to from this point, then this might be a good strategy, especially if he feels like he wasn't making any progress in terms of track position. He's going to try and get it done in terms of the fuel and the pit stop as well instead.
A very, very long pit stop, isn't it? Maybe, you know, a little bit longer than he would have wanted, considering that he's going to have to make sure that he has enough fuel in the car to get him to the end. You can just about see him emerging now, but, I mean, he's nearly lost a lap. He's lost at least 2 sectors there. It's such a long pit lane and stop that, I mean, it's going to be difficult, really, to judge who's got the undercut, because they're so much further back on the circuit. It feels more like an oval race where you're a couple of laps down once you come out of the pit lane, where you just kind of work out where everybody is on the racetrack once they've made their stops. But as we've seen these early stops, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers, you know, maybe change their strategies a bit, particularly if these guys at the front, they may decide to go a little bit earlier than they wanted to. If they are forced to by a couple of undercuts, they may decide to go longer. If drivers pit early, I think, again, they're going to be feeling it out. This is more of the unknown for them, and I think they're just still going to be fine-tuning those kind of strategies and those kind of moves, because that was a bold one up the hill through Eau Rouge and Raidillon.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this so far, but it happens. It's LMP3 traffic for the front of the LMDhs here at the moment. So that's one of the factors that could make or break a race. Traffic falls in your favor or just completely ruins it, as they have to try and negotiate. I think this is Stuart Rice on the way through Malmedy. It seems like the three of them get through on him just fine into Bruxelles now. Of course, these are some of the stragglers that have had problems in the opening portions of this race, so that they haven't met the whole... Ooh, look at that big moment from William Foyle. He's going to lose a lot of ground on the exit here as Ford looks towards the inside, in towards Pouon. He thought for a moment to dive down in there, but it's not really a place where you could do it so effectively. Now Ford has to go from attack to defense because Daniel Thomas is really breathing down his neck at this point. And when you factor in they've got traffic ahead, this can become messy very quickly. And let's see how these guys deal with it. It looks like Foyle's just about to the outside of one of the bits of lap traffic. That's Sophie Arenwen. Ford tries to follow through in his tyre tracks there. Oh, it's so close going off the corner with the lap traffic, but they just about get away with it.
From the onboard from Ben Ford, I really thought that there was going to be contact with the car behind, but I think everybody's made their way through, pointing in the right direction, which is incredible. And when you saw how close they got, particularly through Paul Frere, but this is the part of the racetrack where everybody decides to be. Bit of a party going on down in towards the bus stop. Round the outside goes Ben Ford of 1 and 2, making his way up into a good position right behind William Foyle, and just in behind, Daniel Thomas is hoping to track these guys as well. Jordan Chudwick not too far away either. But this is just difficult, isn't it, if you're an LMP3, because when you've got so many faster cars coming up behind you, one after the other, just putting your car in the place where you feel like you're not going to be hit could be difficult, and could be quite concerning for some of these guys, because it doesn't look like it's the easiest task at the moment, just to try and avoid these LMDHs coming through, because they are very keen to do so.
Yeah, incredibly keen. It's worth noting that these cars are limited to 75% on their fuel, so they don't have a full fuel tank. So that pitter that we saw a little bit earlier, maybe they won't be able to get themselves all the way to the end on that tank of fuel. We'll just have to see. But lap traffic for these LMDHs, I mean, it's gotten a bit close on a few occasions, but it looks like they've been able to get through. Although Thomas has had a bit more of an issue with the lap traffic, as he's now dropped off the back of the leading what is pair now, so hopefully he's able to try and make sure that that gap is brought back in, so we can maintain a 3-car race for the race lead in the LMDh Pro category. But that's just how traffic affects things sometimes. You know, it's a whole element of multi-class racing is being good in traffic. You don't necessarily have to be good in clear air 100% of the time, but if you're better in traffic than your competitors, you can make up a lot of time, and more importantly, positions, if you're able to get through efficiently.
Yeah, and it really is, I would say, one of the key elements of a race such as this, where you've got some inexperienced drivers, particularly in both categories, where the drivers that can work their way through the traffic the best are likely to rise to the top by the end of this race, because it is going to be such a key element in this 60-minute long race, and really all the way through the season as well. But I mean, there are some longer straights here at Spa, longer than you'd get at other places that we're going to go to on the calendar. But you know, this isn't as long as, say, Daytona, where you can pretty much fly through as many cars as you want to on the oval part of the racetrack. So this is really a baptism of fire for quite a few of these guys, and you can just see them. This is just a free-for-all into the bus stop. There are cars all over the road. They are just dotted everywhere, and it's just a case of picking your way through if you're Nick Dealey in the number 28 car, trying to make sure that you're not just overtaking these LMP3s. Oh my word, that is tight. But this is
it's Valentino.
Connery.
It's Valentino. That's one of your front runners in the LMDh AM category. Having a bit of a half spin on the exit of La Source, and might be catching a penalty for the rejoin as well, because he came back straight on towards the racing line. So the stewards will be looking at that post-race if there's a protest that comes through from one of the competitors. But yeah, look at this nose-to-tail stuff. We have 3 wide in the background as well. Just craziness here as the LMDHs interact with the LMP3s. It looks like Valentino has had another incident as well, a little bit further ahead as we see the side-by-side further behind. There's Valentino stuck in the grass, having to try and rejoin the circuit there. It's not been a great quarter of a lap for Valentino as he slides down the order.
Yeah, and you can just see La Source just locking the rears there, wasn't he, the 999 car? And then so difficult to emerge back onto the racing line, and really how you do it if you're Rocco Valentino. I think there's going to be a couple of unhappy drivers in behind, but then coming into Les Carmes again, going too wide, getting on that curb and finding, not in the barrier actually, very lucky to keep it out of the barrier there, and pretty much keep the car intact. But that's not the only shenanigans that have been ongoing. Louis Hesketh here, and he's just turning around Rocco down into the first into the end of the second sector, but it's just not been Rocco Valentino's lap, has it?
Absolutely not. 3 incidents in the space of what felt like 30 seconds there is not ideal. But you can see some of the positions chopping and changing a little bit further back here. This is going to be the number 89 car, so that is the Robin Kratzelberger. Just sort of locked in behind Nick Dealey here at the moment. We saw this little group in try to negotiate the bulk of the LMP3 traffic, and where we had a lot of that confusion, a lot of that chaos. That should be the worst of it over the course of this race, but you know, sort of just develop in these sorts of races randomly. But the first lapping procedure is always the most difficult.
Yeah, we're seeing a few echelons, aren't we, really, of cars grouping together, as we also just see Ben Ford taking the lead over William Foyle down the Kemmel straight. Looked like a very easy move for the number 9 car. But yeah, just touch on it, the point I was making before. We're getting little groups forming. So if a couple of these clumps trip over each other, we could still see those, 8, 9 cars split by, you could throw a blanket over all of them. Whereas 4 are in the LMDh and 5 in the LMP3s, and they're all trying to get past each other whilst not tripping over each other. So there's definitely room for that all to happen once again. Let's see what happened to Ben Ford retaking the lead. Just looked like it was a pretty easy move with the slipstream.
Yeah, slipstream and a little bit of an issue with one of the cars behind dipping 2 tyres into the grass, but yeah, no dramas there for Ben Ford, who retakes the race lead after losing it a little bit earlier on. So we might see a few more swaps between those two over the course of this race. It's just a matter of who's in front of the checkered flag, right? It's just as simple as that. But we're still about 38 minutes away from that. A little bit deeper in the pack. Here's Robin Kratzelberger again here as he tries to continue to try and press on forwards at this moment in time. Nick Dealey is putting up a pretty good defense here at the moment, but again, there's a little bit, well, there's going to be a lap traffic ahead in the form of Callum Newton, and also a little bit further down the road there's a bit of a battle pack going on. Meanwhile, there's the LMDh Pro lead. Will Foyle very close, locked onto the back of Ben Ford here. Let's see if there's going to be another swap on the way down the Kemmel Straight this time around, because I get the feeling that these guys are just sort of, I guess, sort of slipstreaming off of each other and then maybe trying to pull themselves away from Daniel Thomas. It could be the case, but we need to see a pattern over a couple more laps to say for sure.
But they've absolutely pulled the gap further back, though, haven't they? The top 3 pulling away from Jordan Strudwick, who's a couple of seconds now back from Daniel Thomas. Let's see if William Foyle can get the move on Ben Ford. Doesn't look like Ford is giving him the option to go down the inside, defending this one in towards Lake Carmen. The number 44 car having to sit in behind and wait for maybe another opportunity, which will surely come. We've got 37 minutes. It's been great to see that these guys have been running so close together over the first nearly half of the race, and long may it continue, because this could be a fantastic battle all the way to the checkered flag, as this could also be a fantastic battle as they get very close to contact into La Source.
Yeah, this is the LMP3 AM here down towards the sort of second half of the order, at least in the LMP3 category in general. Craig Curtis having to defend from Bello Usman. Usman having to step out of line a little bit and then cuts back towards driver's left-hand side, back towards driver's right-hand side. Got to be careful not to pull off too many moves in the defense here, but Usman has found a lane on the inside, just about half a car length overlap. A little bit later on the brakes there was Usman, and he's able to get himself through with a pretty clean pass.
Yeah, good stuff. Inside line, it's where you want to be, down in towards Lake Holm. So tricky to walk it around the outside there, especially as the track can nip up on you as you make your way into the second part of the chicane. But this is the battle for P9, just in behind. Sophie Ehrenwen and Liam Kelso still going at it. These two have been, swapping positions all the way through this race so far. And at the moment, it's Sophie ahead of Liam Kelso in P9. But I don't think those two are going to be stopping fighting anytime soon, as are the leaders in the race.
Yeah, Aaron Wan has done very well to recover from the slowdown penalty at La Source at the start of this race and get back ahead of Kelso. But yeah, it seems like the front of the LMDh is where a lot of the tension is at, and a lot of the excitement could potentially develop from. Because it seems like these guys are very, very evenly matched, Ben Ford and William Foyle. The interesting point here is Dan Thomas, though, in that number 60. What's he going to do from third place? Because he's just sort of been waiting in the wings here. He hasn't really been close enough to cause too much of an issue. But don't count him out of this one, because he's there sort of lurking in the background, scheming potentially for this upcoming scheduled stop, and potentially using the slipstream a little bit to try and get some get some fuel saving done at this stage. Even though it might only matter, you know, a tiny amount when it comes to pit stops, it could be that tiny amount that gets you out ahead and gives you that opportunity.
Yeah, the margins are going to be so small in this race with these battles that we're having. I mean, half a second could be the difference between winning the race and coming in second. I mean, we've got the battle in the LMP3 Pro is a little bit more spread out because the leader has a pretty much 10-second gap, Andrew Medell over Ant Cassels. But every other leading battle, there's 3.5 seconds maximum in it between all of the other three classes, which is fantastic to see because it means there is still that worry for the leaders. There's still the possibility that something may go wrong, the strategy might not work out, a little incident may occur, and we may get swaps for the lead and battles in all of the classes, which is exactly what we want to see at the start of the season. And we really are being treated, particularly in the LMDh Pro category, because these three at the front have been locked right together all the way through, and it's going to be really interesting to see when the gloves start to come off, because they're playing ball with each other for the moment, but I'm sure that won't last come the end of the race.
Foil got right up to the rear ends of Ford on the way through Blanchimont there. Pretty much almost made contact, so it looks like the gloves are already half off at this point as well before we even get towards the halfway point of this race. We're still waiting, of course, for the scheduled stops to happen. We are getting closer and closer to that point where these drivers will start thinking about coming down and in. You know, do they come down in at the first opportunity? Do they decide to push the stint out a little bit longer? You do have to be careful with trying to gamble on the extra lap here because it is such a long lap, but we're riding on board with Ben Ford with the rear view cameras. You can see Foil getting the fantastic run off the top of Radion. To driver's right hand side he goes, gives him the inside for Lecombe. We'll complete this on the brakes, not fought too hard by Ben Foil, although he is going to get a better line through Lecombe here, but not able to do anything about it. So again, Foil up to the race lead now. Couple of lead changes here already, and we'll see how this affects things going forward, because it does seem like they are so equal at this point. You can't really pick a winner at this point.
You can't, can you? But it's nice to see that they're dealing with the pressure of each other so well. Ben Ford was clearly happy and conceding the position when they got towards the braking zone at Lake Carmen. Was just happy just to take the apex and sitting behind the 44 for the time being, because he knows that he can track him behind. He can stay right close up to William Foyle and maybe have a go somewhere else. But they're coming up to some traffic now as they make their way through Malmedy and into Paul Frere at the end of the second sector, going a little bit wide there. Is that purple car just letting them through? Also a hypercar, mind you, so or a GTP, I should say, as they run their way through. But so there's not going to be too much of an advantage in terms of the pace, but good to see that not interfering too much as they run their way into the bus stop.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does seem like the slipstream are keeping things together here. As of course, Ford lost out a little bit in terms of that little lapping procedure, but he has shown a history of being able to close in that gap just absolutely fine. So it's not too much of a panic just yet. If that gap extends maybe towards 1.52 seconds, then that might start to get a bit concerning, because you're not getting the effect, or at least very little effect, of the slipstream there from that far back. But yeah, looking comfortable at the moment in the front of LMDh Pro. Give us a little bit of a chance to check in with some of the other categories, however, as we see in LMP3 AM. It's the battle for currently second place in that particular AM category. Sikorsky, second place. Aidan Carter, third place in the same postcode out there on circuit. So it's not just the battle for the front of the LMDh, it's a battle for second place in the LMP3 AMs as well. The rest of the race leading battles looking quite spread out for the other categories here at the moment, but that could all close in by the time this race is done. And we'll see potentially if there's any move for Aidan Carter here toward, maybe not in towards that source, but perhaps in towards Lecombe might be the better option. But they do have, and this is an interesting thing, same class lap traffic ahead of them in the form of Michael Mansfield.
And Aiden Carter maybe trying to use this to their advantage as they run up the hill through Eau Rouge and Radion, because Sikorsky may be coming up to a little bit of trouble. This isn't going to be the easiest overtake coming down in towards Les Combes, of course, with no real pace advantage down the straight, lest the slipstream. So Aiden Carter may have a little bit of a look if Sikorsky has any issues, but it looks like Sikorsky is going to make his way to the inside and get that move done pretty easily. And for Aiden Carter, they're going to have to find a way through into towards Malmedy. Very brave, very bold, but very effective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those places that, you know, it is a little bit sketchy, not a guarantee in terms of a successful move into there, as we see driver down on towards the pit lane. That's Callum Newton in the LMP3 AM category, deciding that now is a pretty good time to pit, and it probably is, because we're past the halfway point now, so you will be able to get to the end on a fuel tank from here. But it seems like the vast majority are deciding to push this out at least a couple of laps longer.
Yeah, everybody, I think waiting for someone to blink, really, aren't they? Particularly at the front here, waiting to see who will go into the pit lane first. They can probably push it a few more laps, but trying to work out what the other drivers are going to do, which is going to be oh so difficult at this stage. But if anybody decides to come into the pit lane, I'm sure we might see a couple of others follow, or maybe try and go for the overcut or the undercut, because at the moment it does seem that these top three, if they followed each other in, would be very evenly matched as they come in towards the final 20 minutes or so, but one of them might go long or might go very early compared to the other two, and try and get that strategy differential to working to their advantage. It's going to be interesting to see, because you can kind of see it either way, couldn't you?
Yeah, you absolutely could. And just having a look at the lap times, the tyre fall off, despite the slightly high temperature, is not that much, or at least is cancelled out by the fuel coming out of the cars. So yeah, that doesn't seem like that's a massive problem here at the moment. I mean, it's only an hour-long race, so you're definitely not tyre limited when it comes to that here. But a couple more cars coming down towards the pit lane, going up on the jacks as well. You know, it might be beneficial to do that, because taking fuel at the same time and all that. But yeah, seems like more activity down on towards the pit lane here, and now the battles are sort of becoming more conceptual as those pit stops come through. So we'll have to see how this figures itself out once everyone has come down in and gotten their service. But one of the interesting, actually, I'm seeing a couple of drivers dive their way down towards the pit lane, and it's the front of the LMDh category. So William Foyle down and in, Ben Ford down and in. But an important point here, Dara, is that Daniel Thomas not in on this particular lap. He's going to go one extra compared to the rest of that leading trio.
And neither is Jordan Strudwick, who of course was running in P4, but Thomas clearly jumping him over the last few minutes. They're all going to run their way to their pit box. As you can see, so many cars, cars all over the pit box in both pit lanes, really. So they're going to have quite a while before they come in. But it is Daniel Thomas in the lead now, albeit not really in the net race lead, but will be coming in relatively soon with Jordan Strudwick just in behind. These are the net race leaders, even though they are going at a crawling pace as they make their way into the pit lane. But William Foyle and Ben Ford, sorry, I at a moment there, Ben Ford, they're both tracking each other. As I was mentioning, clearly Ben Ford thinking either that he can just follow in his competitor, try and keep close to him all the way through this race, or had a similar fuel number that he had to come in for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, they were swapping positions at the very front of the field, so it's kind of understandable they're on in a similar sort of fuel situation as they wait for that fuel to go in. We'll have to see the exact times in terms of stops here, as Foyle just sort of eagerly awaits the launch and the drop down off of the jacks there. Of course, both taking tyres as you can do in these prototypes, and Foyle off and away out ahead, and Ford's losing a little bit of time in the pit stop phase there. Just a bit of a slightly longer stop by about 0.3 of a second, and a bit of a poorer lane time as well. But I would say he's still in contention here, of course.
Yeah, I mean, everybody really, you'd have to say, particularly at the front of the LMDh, is in contention because they were only about 5 seconds between all the top 5. So good to see that we've still got battles ongoing as Daniel Thomas goes round again. So still not yet coming in and going for a very clear overcut here. Clearly thinking that there's a little bit more pace in that number 60 car that he can eke out before he has to come into the pit lane. But let's see if this works out for him because it's a bold strategy and we don't necessarily know how it's going to work out. Time will tell once he comes out of the box.
Yeah, I like to see this sort of variation in terms of the strategy here. So it's not everyone going for one plan of action. There seems to be a bit of a split as to the best approach here in and amongst your drivers. And it's the case in LMDHs, and it's also the case actually in the LMP3s as well, as we haven't paid too much attention to their particular pit stops, but they are in the pretty much exact same situation. You've had some that have come down in early, basically on the halfway point, but you have others that are trying to stretch the stints out as well, as there's the battle for second getting pretty close. James King and Gareth Higgins are involved in that one as well, and of course Higgins, one of the as I mentioned before, the highest iRate driver in the field. Is big moment for James King, and well, that's the battle over pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, a certified code brown there for James King. You could just see the tyre marks he was making his way out of the gravel trap, oh so close to the wall. I don't know how he managed to keep it out, actually. And in the end, you have to say a relatively good save because the snap was absolutely humongous for him. But it does mean that Gareth Higgins has a free run now up into P2 and can try and chase after Ant Cassels in the lead of that category. But in that category as well, there's only 5 drivers in it. So more than half of the field are going to get some prizes this evening. So I think they're going to be pleased about that. But for the guys in the AMs, they've got a few more cars to try and work their way through. But for Sikorsky and Carter, I mean, they've been close together for a little while now. Carter looking for the move, and maybe some clean air is going to help make this up towards Les Combes, but you'd say a little bit too far back to make the slipstream work down in towards the chicane.
Yeah, not looking optimistic at the moment, as we see Daniel Thomas finally deciding to come down in. Jordan Strudwick also making the same call as well. So very, very interesting strategy games being played at the front of the LMDHs. We will have to track the progress of Foyle and Ford to see where Thomas and Strudwick come out in relation to those other 2 drivers. You know, have they gained a bunch? Have they actually lost out in terms of the strategy? Still a big unknown at this point, and of course it also depends on the outlaps for Ford and Foyle as well, and if they've been involved in any traffic, because not only are you paying the game in terms of the fuel, in terms of the track position with these pit stops, but you're also trying to play the game with the traffic as well, because you might make that decision on the fly. You might see a group of 4 or 5 cars further down the road just as you're coming towards the pit lane entry and decide, actually, I'm going to just dive it in because I'm going to lose more time trying to get through that group of 4 cars.
Yeah, it's really that risk versus reward that you're going to have to be thinking about, isn't it, throughout the race? Because if you're coming up to about a clump of traffic and you're thinking, I could pit this lap, could pit next lap, realistically, for your race, it's probably more beneficial to come into the pit lane this lap and avoid that traffic. But it can be difficult. It's such a long lap. You don't necessarily know how far you're going to catch in the next lap. It could be, or for some of these drivers, over 10 seconds that you're going to be gaining if you're an LMDh on an LMP3. So difficult to really judge that well, but for some of the drivers who have a very clear-cut option, you'd expect them to be able to make that decision pretty easily. As we're looking at the split screen of drivers coming out of the pit lane, and that is going to be very, very close. That's Daniel Thomas coming out of the pit lane. William Foyle only just going to be going through, and I don't think Ben Ford's going to be able to follow him.
Absolutely not. Ford has had quite a poor couple of outlaps here. And it has meant that we've had a bit of a change in terms of the order at the front of the LMDh field. Daniel Thomas, with a good call in the pit stop phase, getting himself up into 2nd place, and now he's the one chasing Will Foyle instead of Ford here. So, but obviously all these drivers still very much in contention. I'm not counting Ford out of this one whatsoever. Just yeah, he has definitely shown that over the course of this race, he has the pace to be able to hang at the front of the field. It's just made his job just a little bit harder here for the final 20 minutes by being in 3rd rather than 2nd.
Yeah, we're 2/3 of the way through this race now. It's flown by. There's been so much action on the circuit in all four classes, so it's been great to see. But these guys now really having to lock in for that sprint towards the finish because laps are ticking down. You're thinking that a lap time in these LMDh Pros is just shy over a minute. Sorry, not a minute, 2 minutes, I should say. So we're going to have about 10 more laps left. So the opportunities are reducing quickly when you think that there's only going to be 10 more trips to the end of the Kemmel. So they're going to have to be lining up these moves quite quickly and maybe trying to force those overtakes in the near future because you don't want to be leaving it with 10 minutes to go to be feeling a little bit of desperation with trying to get these moves done.
And there's an interesting point here because I'm having a look at the stop times for this leading trio. Thomas actually had the longest stop of the three of them, if you can believe that. 29.1 compared to Foyle's 28.2 and Ford's 28.5. So Thomas actually, surprisingly, considering he was in behind slipstreaming them, actually having the longest stop there. I imagine if he had a stop more on par with the other two, he might be even leading this race at this point if that happens.
And it's very interesting because he came into the pit lane sequence in P3 and has realistically come out P2 and pressuring William Foyle for the lead, and maybe with a lighter car as well, maybe with some fresher tyres depending. I don't think tyres were taken here, but it's always an option. Meanwhile though, in the AM category, Aiden Carter, well, they're going to go through into the lead because Sikorsky has come into the pit lane and Carter going out one more lap, really leaving it late. But is this going to work out for the number 42 car? We'll see where Sikorsky's going to come out because that's going to give us a bit of a reference as to where Carter will come out as well. But there was some clean air for Carter, albeit some maybe some LMDHs behind looking to lap. So this could be an interesting strategy, and we'll have to see how this one goes.
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a the main story of this strategy so far is less about the actual stops and when they happen, and it's about the out and in laps, it feels like, here at this moment in time, because you can see and Castles actually losing the LMP3 Pro race lead to Gareth Higgins, who after a poor start to this race has slowly but steadily worked his way through this field and finds himself at the top of the order as far as LMP3s are concerned. So yeah, great performance in this race for Gareth Higgins, and now he's looking to try and pull the gap. He's already got almost a second over Ant Castles here, which is crazy. I mean, I know the LMDh is factoring in here, but that's a lot of pace.
Yeah, really showing why his iRacing has been so high, isn't he, Gareth Higgins, and just asserting his authority upon the rest of the class at the moment. But Ant Castles by no means out of the picture, still right behind and still within shooting distance of the number 36 car. Another gap that I saw that I wanted to mention was William Foyle has pulled out now 2.4 seconds on Daniel Thomas, make that 2.5 as Ben Ford has closed right up to the back of the 60 car. It does seem that Thomas maybe doesn't have the pace coming out of the pit lane immediately, which is interesting because at the end of that opening stint, it seemed that the 60 was the fastest car on the racetrack. But here is Ben Ford going to make the move to the inside at Lake Om.
Yeah, Ford almost through. Thomas committing and over-committing as he has to take to the grass and take to the runoff and serve a slowdown penalty as well at this point. So he might actually end up losing third place to Jordan Studwick potentially here. We'll have to see how that one works out, but yeah, Thomas trying to keep himself in it with the lunge around the outside to try and respond to the overtake, but has completely sort of bottled it, I suppose, and decided that actually I'm carrying way too much speed here. I'm not going to get the car stopped. I'm going to have to try and take the shortcut across the grass and take the slowdown.
Yeah, I think that's the difference that we've seen between Daniel Thomas there and what we saw earlier between William Foyle and Ben Ford. They were very happy to let each other, take the position when it was quite clear that the car on the inside had the racing line. But maybe it's because we're getting to the closing stages, 17 minutes on the clock. Daniel Thomas wasn't too keen for Ben Ford to have it his own way and tried possibly a little bit too hard to keep that position. In the end, losing an effectiveness to fight for P2, and really now going to have to be looking in his wing mirrors again for Jordan Strudwick, who is coming up behind. But we are still seeing some pit stops, aren't we? Aiden Carter is in, Gareth Higgins and Cassell's in as well. Zed Murray in the LMDh AM category as well. I think these should be some of the final stoppers because we haven't got too much longer in this race and we are nearly at the three-quarter distance.
Yeah, I want to see where Carter comes out in relation to Sikorsky, because that was the battle in the LMP3 AMS that we were watching before it was disrupted by this set of pit stops. So Sikorsky is currently going through last source as Carter's just coming off the top of Radion here. Of course, he will have the slow run all the way down the Kemmel Straight here, but even then, it's a massive gap between the two. It must have been an awful pit stop phase for Sikorsky to have the gap be this large. Yeah, it's 24.3 second stop for Sikorsky. Carter, 17.1 seconds.
I mean, that's an incredible difference, isn't it? In relation, that's, I mean, 33% longer for Sikorsky than for Aiden Carter. And with the pit stop being that long, that is a massive chunk of time. You can see here, that's Ben Ford looking for the move to the inside as he's trying to follow through William Foyle, I do believe. Aiden Carter is in this as well, but this is just getting messy, isn't it? With all of these cars tripping over each other. They're 3 wide on the run down in towards Pouon. I think that is Ben Ford making his way through. I may be wrong on that, but I think it is. Coming down into the double left-hander. Yes, it was, because just behind him, you can see that all-black car that's been tracking him for the past few laps, which is of Daniel Thomas. So you can see the absolute chaos going on down here. Aiden Carter looking just to try and consolidate the advantage that they now have over Sikorsky, but has been chucked out into a bit of traffic, which is just not going to be able to that.
And it's traffic that's fighting for LB3 Pro Race lead as well. So that's why they were fighting so aggressively. It's because it is for the race lead. So Mardell and Higgins are the ones that were going, doing insane amounts of wheel-to-wheel there. Higgins is going to have a tough job to try and hold on to this, because yes, he got through, he worked his way through the pack up into this position, but Madel, rather than Mardell, is looking to his outside now, in towards the bus stop, not able to get himself progressed through there. As you see, Higgins struggling to get the traction down, back end was stepping out just a little bit. But this is an interesting development now. I would have thought that Higgins would be able to just sort of run away a little bit at the front of the field with the pace that he had, but no. Madel is really keeping him honest here, and of course the LMDhs that have been trying to come through have certainly assisted in keeping this battle close.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that Aiden Carter is where they are is even more impressive when you remember that Gareth Higgins and Andrew Madel are behind in the overall race. Aiden Carter is the lead LMP3 overall, so an incredible job from the AM driver, but that's going to come under pressure from Gareth Higgins as Gareth is trying to make his way through. Andrew Madel maybe hoping for something to happen for between these two to pick his way through without having to do too much work, but no such occurrence is going to happen at Lake Com. He's going to have to find his way through elsewhere. It's great to see that we've got the leaders of both the Pro and the AM right next to each other on the racetrack. 45 minutes in as, oh no, that's a half spin. Very well held though from Salvatore.
Yeah, oof, yeah, that could have been so much worse, but able to keep that incident down to a minimum and continue on going here. Of course, for the pro driver in the LMDh category there, having those big issues and more issues out there on circuit as well. Car spun around Jamie Gibson in the LMDh AM category. Involved in a bit of a battle, but again, having to lick his wounds now as he gets back going.
A disappointment then for Jamie Gibson as he makes his way down towards Bruxelles once again. I mean, it's been a pretty solid race from the number 25. Probably good if we haven't mentioned you so far. He's up in P5 despite that spin, and only really tracking 14 seconds off the race lead. So it's been a very solid opening round for him, but I think disappointment that there was a little bit of contact and maybe a little bit of worry now that the drivers behind him may start to really claw that gap down. The likes of Luca Monroe that are right behind, but looking at it again, yeah, a difficult one for both drivers, I think.
Yeah, got a bit too close to comfort down in towards the braking zone for the Coombe there. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't get an absolutely fantastic view of it, but it does look a little bit more like a racing incident than anything else in between those two. Here, there we go. There's the battle between the two, and just contact as they headed towards the middle of the corner there. It's, yeah, it's. I'm not sure you could be too hard done by with regards to that one. Yes, it was a bit of a lunge, but sometimes those sorts of things happen.
And that's racing, isn't it? Particularly at the start of a brand new series, which we are at here at Spa. These things do happen, they do occur, and it is just the drivers feeling their way into the championship. But look at this, ducking and diving, weaving around like an Olympic boxer, quite frankly, down Les Combes for a couple of these LMDHs. And you can just see a move being thrown by, that's Andrew Medel on, I believe, Aiden Carter coming through. Andrew Medel losing lots and lots of time on the back of the AM driver. From his leader in the pro category, so not looking good for Andrew Medel. And coming through as well is the number 2, being very bold. That's Christian Chatura trying to make his way through this lap traffic, but getting stuck in the battles, it seems.
Yeah, pushing wide there was Andrew Medel. So, yeah, it's difficult, and well, they're the same class of car, right? They may not be in the exact same category, well, pro versus AM, but you know, it's an on-track battle for what is overall position, and overall position in the series that happens to not really matter all that much, because it's about the class position in these AMs and pro categories, but. Yeah, really. You just Carter's well within his rights to try and defend that position. Whether or not that is the right decision, that is a completely different question. However, he is allowed to do it, and there's no blue flags and effects there. So therefore, Medel just has to try and find a way through, and without the assistance of blue flags or them just letting them through.
Yeah, because Aiden Carter, I mean, fully deserving to be in the position that they're in, aren't they? Really. But Andrew Medel's not going to be enjoying that, being in, realistically, a completely separate race at this stage. 2 seconds behind Gareth Higgins is all right, but then he's only got half a second back to, there's Ant Casil directly behind him. He's going to come under quite a bit of pressure if Aiden Carter isn't negotiated soon. 10 minutes left in this race. We are really ticking our way down now. But clearly the battles aren't over anywhere through the field, including in the LMD AM category, because Charles Wembley's going for the lead on Patrick Den.
Yeah, and actually has got it. So fantastic stuff in the LMDh AM category. So we had earlier on, we had all the fun happening in LMDh Pro, but now it seems like the AM drivers in the LMDh category are wanting to give us a little bit of a show as well, as Patrick Den gets a very good run through Eau Rouge and Radion, just sitting inside that slipstream. You can see that Wembley's just holding that driver's right-hand side of the circuit to try and give him the inside for LeCoultre, but around the outside goes the 998 machine, and Patrick Den back towards the race lead in the LMDh AM category. This is fantastic stuff in and amongst these drivers, and guess what? Third place is not too far behind either. There's Robin Katzelberger locking onto the back of these guys.
So we've got a great battle for the win in LMDh. We've got a great battle for the win in the AM category in LMDh. But just in the pro category, Ben Ford goes that gap from 2.7 down to 1 second. So he's arriving on the scene as well. We've got that LMP3 Pro battle that we've been talking about for like the last 10 minutes. But Aiden Carter pulling away. Oh, this is what happened though. A little bit earlier on, Stuart Rice getting caught up in an incident there. That's a very weird one at the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, very weird one indeed. It's let's see how much of a lunge it was from. That's the same problem, maybe with a bit of rear locking.
I don't think
that's weird. Synchronized spinning here, that new Olympic sport, synchronized car spinning. I think that's possibly what we need for the next Olympics in LA in 4 years' time. But look at this, Charles Wembley, Patrick Den are the ones that are fighting for the LMDh AM category leads. We've got the LMDh Pros within half a second as well. Look at this gaggle of cars as they head their way through the bus stop. Time is starting to tick down and away now. Only a handful of laps left to go in this one. So it's go time, and you have got to make sure the lap traffic is not going to ruin your race last minute.
Yeah, it's so tricky when you're negotiating. I mean, all of these cars, this is the battles in the LMDh AM and really in the LMP3 Pro, plus Aiden Carter, and they're all making their way through with each other. So, diving up the hill again, look at that though, Patrick Den having to go all over the road on the exit and really into the pit exit to try and avoid the lap traffic. But here's Charles Wembley once again, the number 3 car inside line down in towards Les Combes, and it's not even a question, there's no fight happening as they get onto the stoppers, and it's Charles Wembley into the lead in the class. And this is far from over, isn't it? With a few laps left to run, the top 3, 3/4 of a second between all of them.
Yeah, this is incredible stuff. The LMDHs are giving us a fantastic show for the very end of this race in both Pro and Am categories. We haven't seen much of Robin Katzelberger with regards to his influence over this battle, but still has the time to be able to do so. In fact, as Patrick Den's lost a little bit of time here, he might get himself the opportunity. However, in LMP3 Am, this is one of the other battles that we have to talk about as well. Newton having a little bit of a slide coming through there, and now he's going to become under pressure from Joe Coffin in that Am category as well. This is a battle for second place in LMP3 Am. So you've got battles left, right, and center here. It's going to be absolutely crazy for the end of this race with the amount of action that we have out there on circuit. But Joe Coffin applying a decent amount of pressure onto the back of the 72 at the moment. Pouon's not really an overtaking opportunity, so you just have to stick in line here and wait for a better opening to be able to sling your way down the inside. In towards Piff-Paff, it's very tricky as well to get anything done in towards here. So you're sort of kind of waiting and biding your time and hoping that you'll run in towards the bus stop potentially as your next big overtaking opportunity is a good one.
Yeah, but it's so tricky, isn't it? At this stage of the race, you're thinking about those next opportunities, but then you're also remembering there aren't very many left at all, and they're going to have to be emerging somewhere. This is a pit stop from Salvatore at the moment. Not too sure why he's on pit lane, but regardless, maybe needing a splash and dash towards the end, miscalculating the fuel earlier on when the pit stop was made. 5 minutes to go, you wouldn't expect to see anybody in. But we might see a couple of drivers, by that evidence, needing a splash and dash at the end of the race, but hopefully none of our leading contenders in all of the categories, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, maybe if there's those last moments, maybe even a I was just having a look to see if you got a penalty, because there is an instant limit here. You get 20 incidents, and then you have to bring it down on towards the pit lane for a drive-through penalty. But it looks like he is stationary in his box, so it is an actual stop for Guaranto at the moment, which is quite interesting with less than 5 minutes left to go, as we were watching Adam Locke there for a couple of moments. But look at this this LMP3 Am battle for second place. It's still continuing to rage on, and we've got Michael Mansfield in the background there. Is just a bit of lap traffic and doesn't look like he's going to get himself involved here, but it is neck and neck between Joe Coffin and Callum Newton on the way down in towards Lacombe. Newton's going to be able to come out on top in this particular instance, but this battle is definitely not done, but it might be now as Joe Coffin hits the barrier on the outside.
Yeah, maybe overdriving the car in the 136, just losing the rear end and spinning around, hitting the barrier. It doesn't look like there's too much damage for Joe Coffin, but it's such a disappointment with so little time left on the clock. You can see really pushing it through, bouncing his way over the first part of the curb, spitting him out wide onto the heightened curb that you get on the exit of Malmedy, and that just means that he spun around and into the wall, and so disappointing. Lucky really to get away without too much damage. But for Adam Locke in the 555, he's not too worried about that. He's P5 in the 555, but trying to change that, nearly moving to the inside in the pro category ahead of Jordan Strudwick, as these two are really, really close together. Adam Locke, not someone we've really mentioned at all in this broadcast, mainly because we've been focusing on all of the tight battles, but he's less than 10 seconds off the front, just showing how tight the battles are.
Yeah, absolutely, and a bit of lap traffic to be dealt with in the opening portion of that lap there. Sturgic again gets around another one. That's Baz Meacham just getting himself out of the way, not wanting to be affecting these battles here. But it is crunch time now. It's getting in towards the last 3 minutes of this particular event, and still all to play for, not only for the lead in LMDh Pro, but also the battle for P4, which is what we're watching right now in that category. Lead in LMDh Am, podium positions in LMP3 Am. Yeah, it's a lot to look at for these final moments. But as these guys head their way through Blanchimont now, just keep an eye on that time. I'm seeing Will Foyle head his way across the line now, so we still got 2 more laps to go after this point.
Will Foyle he doesn't have the gap that Aiden Carter has to maybe back off to give us one less lap. He is really going to be under pressure because Ben Ford is right there now. He was a long way back about 10 minutes ago. I say a long way back. 2.5 seconds isn't the biggest gap in the grand scheme of things, but it has been coming down consistently. And the number 9 is right there looking to make the move, and he'll have more opportunities to do so into the closing stages of the race. Luca Munro going for the move as well, but I think Ben Ford is going to go for the outside line here at Lake Holm.
Yeah, absolutely committing. Is he clear? Yes, he is. Ben Ford to the race lead on the second to last lap, and now trying to pull away from William Foyle, but I doubt that 44 will allow him to do so. Has got to channel the energy of the other famous driver from using the number 44 if he's able to try and get this race lead back.
Yeah, but what a move by Ben Ford. I mean, he was in P3 at the end of the pit stop sequence, as this is a little bit of argy-bargy, clearly. Luca Munro in the 56 car coming off worst, as there was big contact coming through into Paul Frere. But look at this battle going on in the LMDh Pro. Jordan Strudwick is involved in it, but he's not alone. Daniel Thomas is not too far in front. This is Adam Locke's point of view, and they're all fighting over a podium. And, of course, a podium brings prizes in this series.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So you want to make sure that you're within contention. Third place driver in each class will receive a fully custom pair of Abruzzi gloves. So you want to make sure that you want to get yourself P3 over the course of the season. So getting P3s from this point, very good option. As we see Adam Locke getting himself, trying to get himself ahead. This is going to be side by side in towards Blanchimont here. It's tight stuff coming through here. Better lap traffic going on ahead as well, as Jordan Studwick is able to hold on to that position, but he spins it. Oh, I'm seeing him tumbling down the timing screen here as we see William Foyle. There is Jordan Studwick. After all the pressure that was being applied, he ends up spun in the wrong direction towards the end of the lap, and he falls down in towards P5 there. That is gutting.
Not quite as gutting as it is for Ben Ford, who's lost the lead. And let's see what happened to him in the number 9 car. Was it just a spin for him into the bus stop chicane? One more lap after this one, and yeah, just locking the rears, going around, and that's lost him the race lead with only one more lap to go. And that's crushing. He's not going to be able to surely get in front once again. As this is what happened to Strudwick inside, line up in towards the bus stop chicane, getting it all out of shapes and pretty much doing exactly what Ben Ford did.
Yeah, happened pretty much simultaneously. So drama in the LMDh Pro category for some major positions there. William Foyle might have just come away with this race due to that issue from Ben Ford towards the back end of the event. However, you know, he's going to be very well aware of the fact that the exact same thing could happen to him as well. So he's just got to make sure that he keeps it on the grey stuff and gets to that checkered flag. Of course, Ben Ford will try to be putting in the qualifying lap performance to try and make this gap smaller, but 2.3 from this point is simply not possible under normal conditions. But as William Foyle heads his way out of Curve Paul Frere, it's now a run down in towards Blanchimont and then in towards the bus stop and then across the line to become potentially the first winner in the LMDh Pro category of this series of the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge. It's William Foyle, first part of the bus stop, second part of the bus stop. Nail the throttle now, because William Foyle in the number 44 is our first LMDh Pro winner in the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge, and it wasn't certain at many points over the course of this race. It was a fantastic fight with Ben Ford and Daniel Thomas. In terms of the other categories, however, we're still waiting for those to head their way through and across the line. Here is Charles Wimbley, who was in a fantastic fight in the last moments with Patrick Den as well, but Den falling off the back subwalk here, allowing Wimbley that straight shoot shot all the way to an AM win in the LMDh. So he's got the bus stop to negotiate here as well, and he'll gain a boatload of points in that AM championship. It's the number 3 out of the final corner to take the race win there.
Yeah, well done to both of the winners in the LMDHs, but you have to say, your heart goes out to Ben Ford after that mistake at the end. William Foyle will be very pleased to pick up the pieces, but it looked like Ben Ford had the pace in the end, but just wasn't able to keep it on the racetrack to get himself to the end. They are the LMDH winners, but in the LMP3s, Gareth Higgins, I mean, he had the iRating, we've talked about it all the way through this race, but he really has shown why he has that pedigree behind him and has the ability inside of him, and he surely is going to pick up this win, but there is a battle behind him for P2 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The fight's still raging on in this situation. Look at this. It's absolutely neck and neck between the two of them here. It's Andrew Medell and Anthony Castle side by side into the bus stop here on the final lap. Castle spat out wide, and it's going to end up being Andrew Medell taking that position there in the Pro category. Second place in Pro for the LMP3s. Anthony Castle's third place in Pro. It is Gareth Higgins that takes the race win there as well after a great recovery from the start of the race, and it's going to be Aidan Carter that takes the race win in the LMP3 AM category as well. And actually he got second place overall in LMP3s in general, so that was a fantastic performance from the AM driver. But we can take a little bit of a breather now. We can go through the race results for each of your categories. It's William Foyle taking the race win by 2.3 seconds after a last lap issue for Ben Ford. That is going to be a difficult one to try and bounce back from. Daniel Thomas, a solid third place, able to squeak himself ahead of Adam Locke, who gave him a lot of pressure in the latter stages. Jordan Strudwick, of course, he was there and thereabouts inside the top three as well, but of course an issue later on in the race, which means he's down in P5. Then you got Christian Saruta, Salvatore Grancio, who had that late race stop. And then you've got Sarah Dove, Matthew Luke, and Cody Cosford rounding up the top 10 in LMDH Pro. Then you're having a look at LMDH AM. It's Charles Wimbley winning by 1.7 seconds over Patrick Den. They had a fantastic battle as well. I'm so amazed by a lot of the crazy battles that we've had over the course of this race. It's a very good sign of things to come for later on in the season. Robin Katzelberger in P3 with Jamie Gibson P4, Nick Dealey P5 with Daniel Race in P6, Luca Monroe P7 with Philip Cannell in P8, Louis Hesketh P9, and Jack Mace rounding out the top 10 in LMDH AM. And then you've got the others here. You've got P11 going to Cody Richards, Zed Murray P12, and Rocco Valentino after a big incident at the very back of that category. In LMP3 Pro, however, 5 of them, Gareth Higgins takes the race win there with Andrew Medell, Ant Castles, Patrick Ra, and James King in that order. And then for your final category today, it's the LMP3 AM. It's Aidan Carter taking the race win by 23 seconds over Sikorsky, but of course that gap was a lot closer at many points over the course of this race, especially before the pit stop. But a great pit stop phase for Aidan Carter was able to put him out significantly ahead. Then you've got Callum Newton in P3 with Ethan Barford P4, Joe Coffin P5 with Cav Budd in P6, Baz Meacham in P7, then Liam Kelso P8, Craig Curtis P9, and Linda Noble P10. And then you've got Stuart Rice in P11 and Sophie Aronwen P12. Those more than one lap down: Michael Mansfield, Belal Usman, and Mark Baker. So that is the first race of the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge done and dusted. But you don't want to go away, because we'll be speaking to a couple of our drivers here, and I'm already seeing them getting themselves ready for their interviews here. But before we do so, Dara, a crazy race. I mean, that probably went about as well as we could have expected, really. It's, you know, fantastic fights up and down the field. There wasn't a category without any significant fights, and the racecraft was generally of a good standard as well. So, yeah, I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the race was absolutely fan What a setup for the rest of the season as well. There were so many battles all over the racetrack. There were battles in all 4 classes as well. We were not short on action whatsoever. We had to look in 3 places at once at times just to catch everything that was going on. Great to see so many clean battles as well. I can't really think of too many big incidents that we saw, despite all of the squeaky clean and great side-by-side racing that we saw all the way through. So what a start, and surely it's going to prove to be a perfect way to introduce us into this 5-race season.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season as well. But we will get the conversation with a couple of the drivers here. We are waiting for Will Foyle to join us. But while we're waiting for him, we can talk to the AM winner in the LMDh category, as I can drag him in. And, well, it's going to be Charles Wimbley joining us for his interview here at the very end of this event. Charles, it's a win in the LMDh category, in the AM division of that. Just take me through your feelings. Was this something that you were planning coming into the day, or was this a bit of a surprise?
I've been trying to work on my road course skills, but I didn't expect to win, to be completely honest with you. But very glad. All glory to God. It was really fun. The battle for the podium. Yeah, it was really. I was really frustrated with myself a little bit with the mistakes that I made, but glad that I was able to keep my head cool and focus on the bigger picture, focus on who was in front of me. And it was very fun trying to learn these cars and have fun in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. It's they're not easy cars to get to grips with whatsoever. Are these LMDh machines? So it's I do commend the effort to be able to go around these circuits quickly while dealing with lap traffic. It's absolutely crazy. But I do want to raise the point. Of course, you were involved in that close battle with Patrick Den towards the very end of this race. Just take me through the feelings regarding that, because of course not only, you know, it sounds like it's a new car to you. When you're factoring in those sorts of close battles, how do you approach that whole situation there when you're contending for a race win in the first race of the season? I imagine the nerves are pretty high, right?
Oh yeah. It was mainly just in my mindset. I was just trying to get one lap at a time, just focus on the battle in front, especially the lap traffic. I knew it was going to be a very big factor going in, so planning my moves ahead before they happen, thinking of different scenarios that could happen throughout the race. And yeah, these cars are not easy to learn. I'm mainly a NASCAR oval guy, but I'm trying to be a more overall driver, trying to learn more in my craft. And yeah, the battle with Patrick was pretty intense. It was hard fought and clean, and that's what I really respect the most out of the battle. But yeah, this was extremely fun, to be honest. I can't wait for more throughout the season.
And of course, it sounds like you go to, being a NASCAR driver, we go to a track that's a bit more homely for you as we head to the Daytona Road Course for the second race of the season. What's the attitude going into that one?
Just one race at a time. Like I said, I didn't think that this race was going to go this well, so just got to keep preparing. Just got to keep learning. Just got to respect the competition as well. You know, you can't go in thinking that you're that guy and you're going to win the race before it even happens. So just being level-headed, just learning as much as I can, and just like I said, having fun and taking everything into account. So I'm very excited for Daytona.
Yeah, we're excited for it as well, because we had some very good racing out there today. So wishing you the best of luck for that second race, and go and enjoy your race win.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That was Charles Wimbley there. That is the AM winner in the LMDh category. And Dara, it looks like we'll be able to get the opportunity to have a little bit of a chat with our LMDh Pro winner, which I imagine has a lot of things to cover. And I'll give you the luxury of doing that, Dara. So take it away.
Thank you, William. Welcome in. Congratulations. First win of the season. That was a tough race, though. Talk us through mainly the opening stages, because it did seem like you three at the front were really working on each other to try and pull away from the rest.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was my plan, was to try and work with the guys at the front to try and save a bit of fuel and to make a gap at the front for sure.
I mean, coming towards the end of the race, what were you thinking? Because it must have been a big old moment for you to see Benfield spinning around at the bus stop chicane. What was going through your mind when you were able to get through on him?
I was kind of like, I thought I'd lost the race, because going up Rouge and Radion, I ended up with a LMP3 right in front of me, which cost me so much time and so much speed, and he went flying by, and I thought, oh, that's it. I'm going to have to try and use attack mode on the last lap to see if I can get him. But coming into the bus stop, I was thinking about the next lap, how I could get him. And yeah, just to see him spin, I was like, oh, that's just made that incredibly easy for me in the last lap.
Yeah, a bit of a present, to say the least, at the start of a season. But with it only being the start of the season, we've got more rounds to come, no less than at Daytona next time out. Is it a track that you're looking forward to, one of your favourites maybe?
Yeah, I really like that track when we've done it in the 24-hour. It's been a great track, and when I've done it in other racing, it's one I always enjoy driving.
And that's great to hear. Maybe we can be talking to you a little bit more then throughout the season, William. Congratulations, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
To talk to William Foyle there, Connery. It's always nice to hear from the drivers, isn't it? Especially when we have late race drama, because it really can change the mood quite quickly, can't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show it's not over till it's over. It's one of those cliches in motorsports and a lot of other sports, but it is very, very true. You can't rest on your laurels. You have to be pushing 100% all the way until the very end. But we will have the opportunity now of having a little bit of chat with an LMP3 race winner, and that's our pro winner, Gareth Higgins, down in that particular category. So we'll bring Gareth up. Gareth, it was quite an intriguing race on your part, because you started from the front, but then perhaps the driver's worst nightmare happens at the end of the first lap, where you have a bit of a spin and have to let essentially most of the field by. So just take me through what happened there, because it was a solo instant. Just looks like you locked up the rears potentially, and the car came round.
Yeah, it was quite an embarrassing mistake to make, if I'm being honest. But yeah, as you said, I just completely locked up the rears. Saw myself spinning, and it's like, yeah, as you say, I had to let the whole field go, and it's like, it was just annoying having to stay stationary, but mistakes happen. I almost made the same mistake with like 3 laps to go, and but I was able to, learn from not spinning and just go straight on it. I lost like a second or so, but luckily that was okay.
So essentially, it was a very big recovery drive from that point forwards. Was there any part of you that still said that you could win this race despite that problem at the start?
I didn't think I could win. I thought I could get like a top 5. I'm not entirely sure how I came out in the lead, to be honest, because I think like 8th before the pit stop phase, and I must have just had a really good pit stop phase, or other cars around me got unlucky. I saw one of the cars, I can't remember who it was, ran out of fuel, so I got a few freebies, luckily, but...
Yeah, it does look like you had 15.3 seconds up, which was the fastest of the LMP3s. So it was a good pit stop phase for you. So now that you've picked up this this race win at Spa-Francorchamps, there we go. I'm thinking it's been a long day. So how much have you learned, at least about your competitors, from this particular race? Because of course you had ample opportunity to see what a lot of them are like with you working your way through the fields. Do you think that'll be useful information to know coming into races like Daytona, so that you perhaps start to learn more about, okay, I can maybe push this guy a little bit, race this guy a little bit harder, I might need to give this other driver a bit of a wide berth? Is that what you've been figuring out?
Yeah, definitely. I was able to learn a fair bit. It was I had a very low downforce setup compared to a lot of the field, so I was able to thankfully not have to fight too hard, because I usually had the move done before the braking zone in most cases. But I know, for example, I can't remember which round is next. Is it Daytona?
Yes.
Or yeah, that's going to be very much a draw fest. That'll be a very interesting race, especially with the GTP traffic. Because I imagine it'll be, quite a train for a while. So the overtaking definitely helped in like learning about my competitors here.
So do you feel like Daytona will be a bit of a wildcard race? Because that tends to be what we see in other series, where because the slipstream is so strong, because it's more of a strategic race than it is a race based on outright pace, we tend to get some surprise winners. So do you think that's going to be the case in LMP3s, or are you feeling so confident that the podium there is the one you're going to go for?
No, I wouldn't say I've got a podium covered. On pace, I'd be pretty confident to be fighting for the podium, if not the win again. But yeah, it's as you say, way more of a tactical race. So we'll have to see on the day. But I think I can be up fighting for the podium. But it's just Daytona's just being in the right place on the last lap. So even if you're second all race, that you've still got the chance to. That might be the strategy.
Yeah, we've had so many finishes over the years where it's been a photo finish and a drag race to the line at Daytona. So I'm expecting it to happen for at least one of the categories once we get there. But I'll let you go, and I'll let you enjoy the well-deserved race win, especially having to come back from that lap 1 incident. And wishing you the best of luck for Daytona as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that was Gareth Higgins there, race winner in the LMP3 Pro category. We've got one more driver to talk to, and that is going to be the winner in the LMP3 AM category, as we'll get Aidan Carter up in here. Dara, take it away with our LMP3 AM winner.
Yeah, welcome in, Aidan. Congratulations on the win. You were the most dominant driver out of all of the winners. Tell us how you're feeling, because that really was quite a performance.
Hi guys. I'm a little bit shocked if I can't lie. Yeah, I think going into it, I was a little bit worried about my pace. I knew that the setup I was running wasn't going to be particularly great for things like qualifying and stuff, so I knew my qualifying wasn't going to be great. But yeah, the second half of the race, the car just came alive and yeah, really fell into my lap a little bit around the pit stop phase. So yeah, big surprise, big shock for me.
And talk us through that strategy with the pit stop, because you went quite later, or much later than the rest of the cars around you. Was the car just feeling good? You felt like you could stay out a few more laps?
Yeah, definitely was the case. I went for something a bit more high downforce, so it was a bit easier on its tyres. I think the LMP3 car at the best of times is a bit of a handful, so putting a bit more downforce on the car made it kind of on its tyres. So I just kind of full fueled it from the start and then didn't take any tyres in the pit stop. So a much shorter pit stop in the end, which gave me track position, and with the high downforce, that's kind of what I needed, because the first half of the race I was kind of getting stuck behind other cars, not being able to overtake in a straight line. So yeah, I just needed the track position. I knew once I got the track position in the clean air that I'd be able to put in good laps. But yeah, I think there was a mistake as well at some point from Francisek, who was behind me, so that kind of made the gap a bit bigger than it would have been had the race gone smoothly for everybody in the class. But yeah, pretty happy with how it went.
And with your pace generally, I mean, you were second overall in the LMP3. You were really fighting up there with the leaders in the pro category, despite having maybe just that little less I rating than the guys around you. I mean, that must give you a big confidence boost going into the next few rounds.
Yeah, it definitely does. Really wasn't expecting to fight with them. Yeah, not at all. Yeah, I think the pro winner would have, I think if they'd had a smooth race, I think they would have cleaned off into the distance as well. But yeah, I really wasn't expected to be fighting at the front with the pro cars. I'm not the biggest fan of Spa, so I kind of came into it expecting to be a bit further back than I was. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to make the rest of the rounds very intriguing, because the pros aren't going to be able to just run away at the front. They're going to be in and around quite a few of the AMs at the same time as well.
Absolutely. But I mean, you said that you weren't the biggest fan of Spa. Daytona, where do you stand on that track? Because of course we're going there next week.
Yeah, I love Daytona. I think it's a great track. In these Ligiers, I think it's going to be a bit hellish to drive. I think it's not going to be great. I think the two things that this car aren't great at are heavy braking zones and quick changes of direction, and that you've got quite a lot of that at Daytona. So, and obviously you're going to have to take. I can't run the high downforce strategy at Daytona. I'll be a sitting duck. So, yeah, that one's going to be interesting. I think that one might be within the LMP3. It's a bit of a race of attrition. It's going to be a difficult track, but yeah, I'm up for the challenge. I'm excited for it.
That's what we love to hear. So congratulations, Aidan. First winner in the LMP3 AM category, and maybe many more to come with that performance.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, thank you very much, guys, and thanks for covering the race.
Thank you to Aidan Carter for joining us. And they were all of our winners, Connery, all four of them, and they all seem pretty pleased with their performances, as you would expect. Start of the season, you don't know what to expect, and to come away with a win in the opening round, it's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's getting your season started on the right foot is one of the most fundamental things that you need to get right when you're going for a championship, because the last thing you want to do is to try having to chase a points gap coming into the latter parts of the season. And so being able to develop that buffer, get a few good results in a row, especially in a short season such as this, it's going to mean that you're in the best position possible to be able to go for a championship title. But of course, here in the 2024 Abruzzi Prototype Challenge, it is a very, very short season, but it doesn't mean the prizes are not good, but because they very, very much are. Of course, the title sponsor, Abruzzi, we have the winner of each class will receive a fully custom pair of Abruzzi gloves, boots, and a shirt. Second place driver will receive some gloves and boots, and the third place driver will get some gloves as well. And we've also got a random draw that happens at the end of every race, so that's a random pick from the entire field will also receive a fully custom set of Abruzzi gloves. And not only that, we have an extra prize announced as well, 35 euros for the Abruzzi Championship as well. So prizes on offer, and we're going to be heading in towards Daytona for our next event. That's going to be on August the 20th, so exactly 1 week's time from now, we will be going stateside to Daytona, and we'll have to see what happens there, because it can be a bit of a wild race at that particular circuit. Really, anyone can come out on top there as long as you have the right strategy and you pick your moves perfectly. But that's going to be all that we have time for here on this particular broadcast. My name's been Connery Maddock, and I've been joined by Dara Thacker for the duration of this broadcast. You don't want to miss next week when we head to Daytona. We had some fantastic racing here today. We'll have to hope for more of the same. Goodbye.